So we're here talking about social video and content velocity. So the strategy behind why we shifted to focus on social media and the type of content that we're producing and trying to reach our target audiences. You can flip to the next slide. So just to start out, to give you a little bit of context, our digital transformation started about 2.5 years ago. In a second, I'm going to have Tim Match come up here and kind of take you on the journey of how we got to where we are today. But these numbers up here give you a pretty good example of the impact that we've been able to have through that digital transformation, and that we've added 1.4 million new fans and followers to our Clemson social media accounts. Last year in 2015, we had 27 million video views that we generated. We were ranked the #1 Twitter account in college football by Sports Illustrated and Twitter. As you can see from the article over here on the right, we actually won the internet, didn't know that was possible, but that was very exciting. And then more importantly, the teams have been having success on the field. So obviously a national championship appearance in football, also had one in men's soccer. A lot of our teams have been succeeding. Our baseball team's hosting a NCAA regional right now after just winning the ACC tournament. And we've been able to see record fundraising numbers. So in helping our IPTE, which is our fundraising arm, helping them in terms of showing our donors, people who have made a financial commitment to our athletic programs, where their money is going. So not just showing them what happens on Saturdays in the fall between the lines, but all the other things that by making a financial commitment that you're helping young people really have a great college experience, and in addition to hopefully winning games, that they're also becoming better people, and we're developing leaders for the next generation. So again, my name is Jonathan Gant. I've been at Clemson for about 2.5 years. Director of New and Creative Media. So that basically means I have kind of a two-pronged role in that I set digital strategy, so the way that we use things like apps, social media, websites to deliver content to the audiences that we're trying to reach. And then I'm the creative director for the athletic department. So I previously worked for the Tampa Bay Rays. The community at Clemson has been unbelievable. In particular, my wife, Becca, my two daughters, Samantha and Amelia, it's just been a really good situation for them. That's not really necessary to this conversation today, but I love them very much, so I like to talk about them as much as I can. So it also means that I get to work with really great people like Nick Conklin.
Hey guys, I'm Nick. I'm a coordinator of digital content, entering my second year, just finished my second year as of last Friday. At Clemson, I'm a former men's soccer student athlete from Long Island University in the beautiful borough of Brooklyn, New York. And I oversee all of our student videographers. I'm our lead feature videographer. And I will give a quick shout out to my beautiful wife, Charlotte, who's watching at home right now. I'm just kidding, this isn't actually broadcasted, but, so, yeah.
Okay, so this next slide is why social. That's the first question, is why should there be any focus? Why should you devote any resources to social media? And so to answer that question, I want to bring up Tim Match, who's our Senior Associate Athletic Director for External Affairs. I'm sure lots of you in this room have leadership in your different universities or your colleges where this question has probably come up in terms of, it's pretty undeniable, social media at this point, but like, how do you attack it? Do you hire a small group that's meant to handle social media? Do you refocus a department that you already have within your athletic department? There's a lot of different ways to do that, but I'd like Tim to describe how we approach that at Clemson.
Good morning. I'll be quick. We actually started this journey about 3 blocks from here, about 3 years ago. It was the day before Clemson played LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. Our director of athletics, Dan Radakovich, and I were sitting in a room trying to figure out what can we do next. And one of the things that we needed to do a better job of was in our, quite frankly, our sports information office. We had one of the top sports information offices in the country. But we needed to look at it differently. There was a reason that newspapers were going out of business, and we were afraid to tell our story. And quite frankly, we talked to a lot of people. We talked to people in the Premier League, we talked to the NBA, we talked to the NFL, we talked to Major League Baseball, we talked to some institutions, and we said, what can we do different? And at Clemson, I mean, Clemson's a unique place. we recruit 365 days a year, whether it's a student athlete, a fan, or a potential fan. Somewhere in all four of those circles, there's a sweet spot. And we sat there and said, how do we do this? And quite frankly, we developed a plan to change our sports information office into an advertising agency. It's okay to tell our story. That was not always the most popular comment, but it's one in which we started that transition a long time ago, 3 years ago. What we did is we did not make an investment in social. We made a reinvestment in communications. And we were able to bring on Joe Galbraith from Mississippi State to be our director of communications. We were able to bring on Jonathan and Nick, and that was our strategy. But it's just not 3 people. It's re-engaging an entire department, just not in communications, but athletics. And what's unique about Clemson is right now we're in the process of hiring a executive vice president of public relations. Our university is taking the same model that athletics put together and taking it and putting it into the university. Once again, it goes back to recruiting 365 days a year, students, student athletes, fans, and potential fans. The same strategy can be used in your admissions office. Just don't think about it just as athletics. Real quick, and I'm not going to ask for a role, but the other part that was beautiful about Clemson is our CIO, and I'm not sure how many of you know your CIO on your campus, but I'm telling you, he or she is one of the most important people that you can begin a relationship with. Our CIO is retiring, and he's going to be missed. But I'm going to tell you, that individual can help you in so many ways and open up so many doors with Samsung, with Adobe, with Microsoft, with Poland Fiber. Get to know your CIO. The other thing where we've been successful is obviously we've been successful on the field. All 3 of those prongs, from the relationship with the CIO and Adobe, the relationship and the change of culture and communications, and our success on the field, really is how we got to where we are. The last thing real quick, it's okay to tell your story. Brag about yourself. And the last thing, hire young, smart people. Clemson does not have a journalism school. We don't have a film school. We don't have a production school. But I'm going to tell you, we've got some really smart young students, and quite frankly, Jonathan and Nick are going to talk about a lot of those students and how we've been able to engage them.
So thank you, Tim. I appreciate the insight from a leadership perspective. And so what Tim described and what was mentioned earlier is that our sports information department was very well respected in terms of media relations and servicing media and providing information and that sort of thing. But in 2013, as late as the late summer of 2013, the web had been around, social media was well established. We were still kind of stuck in that more traditional way of doing things. And so we're missing this giant opportunity of communicating directly with those 4 circles up there, the people who we needed to talk to directly. And it used to be that we needed newspapers, we needed magazines, we needed radio stations, all those people, because they had the subscribers, they had the audience, and they had the expensive equipment. You're talking about news stations, there's a lot of cameras here that are very, very expensive. A lot of what you guys work with for live broadcasts, it's really expensive equipment. Not anybody could do that. When you're talking about social content and features, everyone now has really powerful cameras just walking around in their pockets. And there are full editing suites just here in your pocket. And so the technology was there, and society had moved in terms of using these online platforms to communicate, to get news, to get entertainment. All of that was there in 2013, but we weren't using any of it to Clemson's advantage. And so to Tim's credit, and to the credit of our athletic director, Dana Radakovich, they saw that opportunity and they acted on that. So it was a matter of refocusing our sports information department, because with football, there's no shortage of people who want to cover our football team. But we have 18 other sports who have just as many good stories to tell, just as many great student athletes who deserve to be publicized. And how can we change the rest of our department who rather than waiting around on someone else to tell that story for us, how can we do that ourselves? So shifting those jobs to focus on content creation every single day. Why social media specifically? It really goes to recruiting. So I was new to college athletics. Like I said, only been at Clemson about 2.5 years, and I knew what the casual fan knew about recruiting, and that it was important, and it was cutthroat. It was really, that was about it. I didn't know just how important it was to the success of an athletic department. And so we were talking about why spend time on social media, because that orange circle from the previous slide, recruits, that's our primary target audience. And where they communicate, where they get entertainment, where they get news is on social media. So if that's where they are, that's where we need to be. So how do we build, specific to this group, how do we build video content that's tailored to the social media experience? So starting out, what does it look like? And that's where Nick's influence has had a major impact on our department.
Just from a quick show of hands, how many of you guys ever got an email from a coach, from staff, or somebody like that that said, hey, can I get a quick 5-minute video? Anybody? There's no such thing as a quick 5-minute video. Right? These are both gifts. But the one on the left, the workout from 2012, that's actually a 5-minute video of workouts that was on YouTube, that was on our YouTube channel. And then the one on the right is a workout from 2016. There's a number of things that I can talk about on this slide right now, so I just want to hammer out the X's and O's real quick. From the workout from 2012, the answer to getting to the workouts in 2016 is twofold. One is identifying the need of the coach when they submit that request to you, but also adhering to the recruits, or that's who we want to target. So that's how you have to get to 2016. The other part of that is building a relationship. When you build relationships with the coaches and the players, you break down walls. And when you break down walls, I shot that workout right there in 2016, and I sweat just as much as the guys that were running sprints. I'd tell you right now. So I want you to pay particular attention in workout from 2012. It's very static. It's very stationary. You take the spectator approach where the camera's mounted to a tripod, maybe zooming in and out, panning left and right. Whereas the workout in 2016 is much more dynamic and deliberate. It's the camera movement. You've got a combination of primary, secondary, tertiary movement in the editing and stuff to create something that's much more engaging. No recruit wants to watch a guy squat for 5 minutes. Maybe they do. But if you show them squatting for a half a second or a second and you throw in some more context shots from the workout, in 15 seconds, you've done your job, the recruit likes it, and then they're on to the next thing.
Yeah, it's got to be dynamic, especially when you're talking about people scrolling through on a small device, a small screen, and they got a lot of clutter in that newsfeed. There's a lot of different accounts that they follow. Like, you've got to get their attention with dynamic visuals like this, and then you've got to tell whatever story you're trying to tell in the shortest form possible. Get in, make your point, and get out, because they're going to move on really quickly. The retention rates on social, you're not going to get people longer than 30 seconds, if that. So that's changing the way that it looks and feels, and that's a really important part of the content. The next aspect, the next element of that, so next slide, is the distribution of it. So again, we've got that traditional model of driving people back to your website, which makes sense because that's where you're able to monetize in terms of having advertising on your site. But that is not the best experience for social media. It's just the click-through rates to get people to come back to own platforms where if they're on Facebook or if they're on Twitter, you're disrupting that app experience, bringing them out of it, hoping that they'll wait for a page to load, hoping that they'll wait through pre-roll, and then get to your video. So on the left, for example here, this was in 2013. If you saw a link that you were really interested by on Twitter, and you were interested in at least enough to click through, which is a big step, it took 1 minute, 7 seconds to actually see the first second of video. No one is going to wait around that long on social media. First of all, just to get them to click through is a great challenge. You better have a great copywriter who gets people with clickbait, getting people to that page, but that's just not very likely. You've got to move to the one on the right there in terms of delivering that content on that platform. So obviously it's a move away from the traditional way of doing things and forces you to get a little creative with monetization and branding and different sponsored elements if you need to. But if you want people to view the content, there's just such a big difference in the numbers that you're going to get back in terms of reach and engagement. if you're delivering directly on the platform versus bringing someone somewhere else. And you can see, to Nick's point a little bit earlier, the point here in both of these videos is to get people to come to a men's soccer home game, so to buy a ticket, drive home attendance. The one on the left, not only is the distribution model outdated, but the content is just let's interview the coach and ask him to talk about the game, which made sense at the time. But now we have the opportunity in social, all the information that they need in terms of like the who, what, when, where is over on the right. That's immediately visible. And then you've got a dynamic piece over on the left that shows a home crowd doing our cadence count, doing a chant, the team huddling up. So you get people's attention, you get them the information that they need in a really concise package that fits that social media experience. So that's kind of the look of it. Who's actually doing it? That's the next question in terms of personnel. So to reference what Tim was talking about, we really refocused a lot of what our sports information staff was doing, but we also totally revamped our undergraduate student worker structure. So we went from having students who were working games and running stats, and then during office hours were making copies and answering the phones, to now we have students who are specifically pursuing a career or have an interest in videography or graphic design or writing or maybe stats and maybe traditional SID roles. But now we have students who fill those different groups or those different buckets, and we're able to give them really meaningful work. So like Nick is our only full-time feature like digital videographer. The rest of our video staff is focused on live production, which I know a lot of people in this room are the same thing. So Nick's the only one, but we have 19 teams and 500 student athletes, and how do we keep up with the demand? We can only do that excuse me, by bringing in students who can do a lot of this work. So we're fortunate, Tim referenced, we have an Adobe partnership where all of our students have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud, so they have access to Premiere, which means that they have the same set of first-class tools. And with those tools and with guidance from people like Nick, you're able to get a product that reaches your expectations from a branding standpoint.
Yeah, so Tim also made mention to the fact that we don't have a video production major, we don't have a film school, we don't have a graphic design major either, and so really our students do this as a hobby. One of our best student workers now, he just finished his freshman year, he's an engineering major, and he's phenomenal. He's got a great eye for composition, he's a good editor, and he works hard. We've got Parks, Recreation, Tourism Management students, communication students. One of our students that just took a job at Rutgers started as a philosophy of religion major. And so we're identifying these students that are very talented and that can help us out. And you know, I'm not going to say that the classroom component isn't necessary, but if you've got a talent, we want to bring you in and we want you to help us out in our productions. The other side of it too is about the partnership with Adobe. We use the hell out of that. What's important for us and for our students is maintaining brand standards. That's fonts, that's logos, watermarks, colors, you name it. And so with the Adobe Creative Cloud, there's a feature in the Creative Cloud called Libraries. And in the libraries, we house all our watermarks, all our logos, our color palettes, et cetera, that our students can use. And like if you see this, the picture here on the right, Clemson
Brandon, could
FB
you press
watermark.
play on that one?
Oh yeah, here you go.
Oh, sorry. No, go back. If you press play down in the bottom left-hand corner of that one. So this was created by a student.
So we talked for a while about utilizing vertical video because, you know, when you view a lot of mobile experiences, it's vertical. Instagram allows you to do that, obviously. And then you notice the watermark in the bottom left-hand corner. We put the watermark in every single video. We put the tiger paw usually at the end of every video. But what those do is that creates a parameter for those students to now create within, right? It's not a strict parameter that inhibits their creative abilities, but it's one that, hey, we have the Clemson brand. We have to stay on brand. Here's the elements that you need, but other than that, go out and create something dynamic.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, that wasn't, you know, a student named Max Huggins produced that. He didn't do that on day one, but we were able to get him up to speed a lot quicker to where we were just able to give him assignments and he was able to come up with his own ideas and we weren't having to micromanage and hold his hand through everything because he had the right resources in terms of tools and branding elements, and then also guidance from Nick. And so our students, if they are given the right guidance and resources, it is truly amazing to see what they can do. And we wouldn't have had the impact that we've had in terms of like 1.4 million new followers and stuff like that. Like, we wouldn't be able to do it without students. And excuse me, we'll show you one example here on the next slide in terms of a student-produced feature that is probably the best example we have of building for social. So how do you tell the most concise, how do you tell the best story possible and the most concise package possible?
Do you feel like Clemson's taking a gamble on you in some regards just because of your lack of head coaching or even coordinator experience?
No.
So you have to love Coach Sweeney's confidence. He's a special person. Obviously, he has a very special story. If a student named Kevin Collins produced that 15-second video, he just got a job with the Atlanta Falcons doing video for them. We're really proud of him. And I am convinced if he had made a 90-minute documentary about Dabo Swinney, it would not have gotten the point across better than that 15-second video did. And so that's the concept, is really in thinking about storytelling and trying to focus what the story is you're trying to get across and do that in a really impactful way that you're not going to get people for minutes at a time, much less hours. And so how can you really get your attention and get your point across quickly? So we're very fortunate that we have a lot of students who have made a great impact. We have one here in the audience. My man Brad Cohen's there in the third row. Brad's an example who really didn't have any ideas of pursuing video, did a class project where Nick partnered with the faculty member. There was an assignment where they had to do a video deliverable, and now Brad is interning in our office for the summer and is really passionate about video and may be able to pursue a career in it. So it's those kinds of opportunities that, again, we don't have a film school, don't have a journalism school, but if we can give them the right tools and the right guidance, there's a lot of young people out there who are passionate and have interests and have hobbies, and how can we cultivate that and maximize that? So you've seen the personnel, but what about the equipment?
Yeah, so this list right here and the things that are listed under shooting equipment, it's a very fluid list. It's an evergreen list, but really I like to think that we ball on a budget. And so I want you to pay particular attention to a couple of things. One is that we have brand elements that are graphic elements that go on the video. That's like I said earlier, that is the watermark, the tiger paw, the orange, the purple. But other brand elements for us are also the equipment that we shoot with and how we produce video. So we shoot primarily in DSLR mirrorless cameras. Last season we shot a lot on the Canon 5D Mark III. Believe it or not, a lot of our slow motion videos from last year were shot at 1280 by 720, and we played back at 24 frames per second. Nothing that we produce that goes out on our channels is ever 30 or 60. It's always 24. It's got to be 24. It's just a look preference that we have, and it's a brand standard that we have. But as of late, we've made a much larger push towards a more mobile workflow.
Yeah, so I probably should have done a better job of reviewing this presentation before we did it, because Nick looks like super cool with his Ronin and his DSLR, and then I'm the nerdy guy over on the left with my little cell phone gimbal. But the idea is that even though I may look nerdier, I can still get very close to the product that Nick creates with the equipment on the right. So, how can we, again, making it as accessible to as many people as possible, how can we do a lot with this? And so when you get a stabilizer, then it takes that shaky cell phone video, all of a sudden makes it a really smooth shot, makes it look very professional. And really that's our focus now, is trying to accessorize an iPhone or an Android phone to get the most out of that particular device, because that means that we can move that much faster on game day in terms of capturing, production, and distribution. So here you can see me walking out of the tunnel. Brandon, you can go to the next slide there. The picture was at the end of this video, so you can go ahead and start this video. This is filmed on an iPhone. So I'm in the locker room. I walk out with the team. I get behind our star running back, Wayne Gallman. So I follow him all the way down the tunnel. And now we're coming out onto the field. And again, I've got that cell phone gimbal that's given us this smooth, steady shot. So right about here, and you'll be able to see when I turn around. So we talk about with our social channels, how can you answer the question, what is it like to be a Clemson Tiger? That's what every piece of content should do. Help answer that question of like, what's it like to be there? So this video, I walk out behind him, I'm filming the entire time, I peel off to the left there, I do a quick pan of the crowd to show some context, you see the pyrotechnics going off. You know, that concept is making people feel like what it's like to be a Clemson Tiger, but I'm able to pull off to the side, do some basic editing on my phone, and distribute that immediately before the coin toss. And so if you're at home watching the game and you're using your phone as a second screen, or maybe you're not watching the game at all and you're using your mobile device as a primary device, you're able to experience what it's like to walk from the locker room out to the field for the national championship game with Wayne Gallman, and you're able to see it before the game even started. So that's what we talk about in terms of content velocity and working really quickly to turn content around during the broadcast window when people care about it the most and when they're paying attention the most. And the way that we approach event coverage is a lot of people in this room are involved with live production, and we think you guys know what you're doing. You know, like Rick Bagby at Clemson is one of the best in the business with live broadcasts. Our TigerCast Productions and what he does for ESPN, I'd put it up with anybody. And so it's not trying to duplicate our video services department, their efforts, but how can we bring extra value to that game day experience? So we really tell our folks, like, turn your back on the field. The field is well covered. If there's a 60-yard touchdown pass from Deshaun Watson to Artavis Scott, the broadcast is going to get the best footage of that, the great footage of that. You need to focus on the student section that goes nuts after the 60-yard touchdown pass, because that's the value that we can provide. We can show context, we can show atmosphere, we can show emotion, and I don't know that there's a better example of our approach to that than our most exciting 25-second series that we did this year.
One quick note about the equipment that we use is that we use DSLR and mirrorless cameras primarily because of their affordability and their efficiency. You know, when we're on the road and we have our laptops, it doesn't make sense to me, and my laptop doesn't have the power to edit 6K footage to shot on a web track. You know, Sony A7S II or really into the DSLR mirrorless cameras can shoot just as good an image, obviously with the right operator, to make our workflow as efficient as possible. So as far as the most exciting 25 seconds, we did this after every game, and we took our show on the road in some form or fashion for every game last season. Syracuse remains the smoothest operation, which kind of seemed, which looking back, seemed like it was going to be tough considering what we dealt with the week before. Anybody familiar with Adobe Anywhere? What Adobe Anywhere is it's basically like a Google Doc where multiple people can edit at one time. Adobe Anywhere allows basically for an editor in New York and an editor in LA to work on the same timeline in Premiere. So we implemented Adobe Anywhere. We had a evangelist come down onto our campus, teach us Adobe Anywhere on Thursday. The team was leaving on Friday, and we had our student videographer, Max Huggins, was going up with Jonathan and the team. So Jeff Callan, who's our graphic designer, and I had to relay Adobe Anywhere to Max and say, hey man, we're gonna implement this. It utilizes Adobe Prelude to log the clips, and then so we gave it to Max. Max left with the team. He was up there on Saturday, and so we implemented it within a day of learning it. It was pretty crazy, but Max was up there in Syracuse. We were back. Jeff and I were in Clemson, South Carolina, and we were editing from Clemson, South Carolina. Max would shoot content. He would go onto his computer in the media workroom, log the clips in Prelude, send them 850 miles to me instantaneously because it's a cloud service. There's no uploading to Box, downloading to Box, uploading the final product again, downloading the final product again. Everything is streamlined. It's incredibly efficient. So the clips were going 850 miles to me within a matter of seconds. I was cutting together a product. I had a video out in 15 to 20 minutes, sent it 850 miles back to Jonathan in Syracuse, New York. So our entire operation in a matter of 20 to 30 minutes was going 1,700 miles round trip just to go 5 feet.
Yeah, and that series we called it the 1 second series at first, and then Clemson's got this thing called the most exciting entrance in college football, where They run down the hill, most exciting 25 seconds. So we decided to brand it that way, but the series is 1-second shots. And Nick, to his credit, you're talking about building for social, like that was the concept, is a second is long enough for people to see and to acknowledge what they're seeing. And then by the time they've done that, you've moved on to the next thing. So you're really stimulating that audience. You're packaging a lot of great content and emotion and story into a 25-second video. So I know we're running a little bit short on time. We'll go a little quickly through these last few slides. But in order to move quickly and achieve content velocity, like for instance at the national championship game, you have to be prepared, obviously, going in, which you guys know better than anybody. And the way that we prepare is we've established a content menu. So we know going into that game certain things that are going to happen. Like the team's going to arrive. There's going to be an end of the first quarter. There's going to be a final score. Like those are things that you can plan on. And we over-prepare for those in terms of setting up templates, files, that sort of thing. And then that allows us to be flexible to the spontaneity of sports. When something amazing happens, we can respond to that because we're not tied up doing something else. So we really try to focus roles to very, very specific responsibilities. It's not one person who's shooting, editing, uploading, all that stuff. We try to have one person who's shooting and one person who's editing, because that allows people to really focus in on one thing, do that job really, really well, and then collectively, if your team's on the same page, you're able to move really fast and push out a lot of content. So you see a couple examples here. We'll go to the next slide. This is an example of a score vine. So everybody does the score graphics at the end of a quarter where you see, opposing home score, what the update is there. We wanted to stand out. Again, how can Clemson stand out in that news feed? So we wanted to do something with video. So taking that score and then putting that shot behind it. So you see an example of those roles that I was talking about there in terms of shooter, runner, editor, using Creative Cloud libraries, exporting and distributing. There's like one person that handles each of those roles so that you can move really fastly. And again, that's a lot of students who fill a lot of those roles. So next slide. So Nick and his team are able to work really, really quickly because there's a very clear understanding of what we're trying to accomplish. And Nick, I know we skipped through that slide a little bit, but wrapping up your side of things in terms of that approach on a game day and how you move quickly.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is to get, like Jonathan said earlier, get those context shots. As soon as a student, we usually run on game day, just only have 2 videography students. Obviously, Syracuse was efficient because we just had 1, which was fine. But, I have confidence in the students that they're going to be able to capture the right content. And so as soon as they get a nice clip, they bring it back to me, and it's not a matter of 25 shots. It's if they get 5 shots and one of them's good, bring it my way. I usually act as the lead editor. I'll cut it, and we distribute it almost immediately.
So you see up here, this stuff is good, being ranked the #1 Twitter account in college football by Sports Illustrated. That was nice, and being among the finalists, seeing Clemson mentioned among the NBA and the U.S. women's national soccer team, like that's a great thing for Clemson. We take a lot of pride in that, and that Clemson is seen in that way. But ultimately, that's just an indirect impact of what we're doing. 1.5 million new followers is indirect. We are focusing on trying to bring value to recruiting and to fan engagement. So everything that we do is focused on trying to serve that audience. The other benefit that Nick and I both just personally enjoy and get a lot of satisfaction out of is seeing students who, I'm still being helped every day by mentors. There's a couple of them right here in the front row. If I didn't have people who helped me along the way, I wouldn't be in the situation that I'm in, and we get a lot of satisfaction out of trying to return that favor. And so we've had students who have gotten jobs at Adobe, at Rutgers. We've got a student right now who's at the Summer X Games working for ESPN, and then he'll hop on a plane and go work for Turner at the NBA Finals, and he hasn't even graduated yet. He's a junior. So those kind of opportunities for students, it's just unbelievable to see if you give them the right guidance, the right mentorship, and let them go and let them show you what they can do. It's a really rewarding thing. So if you're interested in we always have students graduating. If you have full-time opportunities, you're interested, looking for some talent, we'll probably go back in the hallway over here. Or if you're interested in anything that we talked about today and want to ask some follow-up questions, we'll be out there for a little while. So thank you again for having us, and go Tigers.